All right, y'all. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening to you all. Thank you for being here. It is Tuesday, July 15th, and we are here for our first training session of the US Cyber Combine 2025. So, first and foremost, thank you for finding your way in. Thank you for being on time. I have a couple of announcements to share with you, and I guess less announcements, more reminders. And then I will hand it over to the two gentlemen that will run tonight's session. So with that, announcement number one. We will be updating the grades or your scores in Canvas every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I know many of you have reached out to me via Discord to ask about your code of conduct, to ask about the surveys, to ask about some of the other assignments that have been scored and those scores have been returned. If you didn't get a score for something you've submitted as of yesterday, you probably did not get one today. And you will see those tomorrow, likely before midday. As soon as the attendance roster for tonight gets processed, along with the recording from tonight's session, I will post the recording to the assignment in Canvas, and then I will also mark attendance when I do that. So I know we shared in our kickoff session that attendance is going to be rewarded if you attend live. We will certainly be granting you full points. There will be a poll that gets released at some point during tonight's session. And so you'll want to make sure that you respond to that poll to receive the full points, the 200. Now, to kind of rest some worries, I hope. The training sessions, while full points are awarded to those of you that attend the live session, even if you watch every single training session via the recording, you're missing out on approximately 50 points per training session. That's a total of 300 for the entirety of the Combine, out of a total 5,000. As well, you have the opportunity to earn some extra AB points, above and beyond points, for various activities such as participating in the cyber battles, for submitting excellent write-ups during week 8, and there will be some other opportunities to earn AB points at the coach and mentor's discretion if you are worried about the loss of points for not being able to attend live. Jess and I are also considering an alternative. However, that has not been agreed upon yet, and we have not shared that information out yet. So until further notice, the way to get full points for attending the training sessions is to attend the live session. And that's really because we're wanting to encourage group activities, coming together, learning together, asking questions. I think it makes all of us better to receive information in real time, be able to ask the trainers about their presentations, about their content, etc. So that was announcement number one. Announcement number two, I can't stress this enough. If you have not done so already, you need to update your Canvas LMS profile per the LMS onboarding assignments. I know many of you think you have done this, and you may have not. It needs to be first name, last name, and in parentheses, your Discord handle. That is what we're asking for. That is what's been spelled out in the assignment. So you will not receive points for the LMS onboarding assignment unless you go in and fix your profile alias as it suggests to do so in that assignment. First name, last name, parentheses with your Discord handle. Similar story here in Google Meet. The way that we record your attendance points is by looking at the Google Meet records for both how long you were in the training session, as well as whether or not you answered the poll that gets put out. I don't know when the poll will go live, but there will be a poll at some point during tonight's training session, and we will be looking at who responded to it. Let me go back. Discord handle or what's displayed in the server. Either one is usually fine. It's easier just at first glance if it's what's displayed in the server, but as long as there is a reference to your Discord handle, some way that I can find you via chat or otherwise, I will be happy to give you credit. So First name, last name, Discord handle, please in parentheses for your Canvas alias. For Google Meet, please adjust your Google Meet alias so that way when you're logged in here, it shows your first and last name. This makes returning your scores a massive, it moves it from a massive lift to one that is quite easy. So if you are not logged in as something like your first and last name, it will be much harder for me to return your scores. All right, the last and final announcement that I have came as a result of a couple of questions that I received in terms of the challenges for each week. The challenges for each week will be the step or ladder challenges. So essentially what you're looking at is there will be 3 challenges per week. And when we share with you the information on how to log into the CTF environment, you will register. Yes, you all will need to register a new account on the CTF environment. And when you do so and get logged in, you will see challenge number 1. Once you've solved challenge number 1, challenge number 2 will unlock. In a similar pattern, challenge number 3 will unlock once you've solved both challenge number 1 and challenge number 2. So moving forward, challenges will be available either immediately following the training session each week or the morning thereafter, so Wednesday morning, and they will remain available to you until Sunday evening, East Coast time. 11:59 p.m. is typically when we shut those down. And so you will have from Tuesday night or Wednesday morning until Sunday night to get as far as you can in the 3 challenges. At the end of each week, the Monday following when those challenges close, we will go in and we will record your points to see how many of those challenges each of you were able to solve. And thus, you have the opportunity to earn up to 300 points. I know CTFD is currently set up for the web challenges that they're dynamically scored. They're all worth a maximum of 500 points. However, in Canvas, you will see your scores recorded as out of 300. So each of the challenges is worth 100 points in Canvas. If you solve all 3, you will get 300 points. If you solve 2, you'll get 200 points. If you solve 1, you will get 100 points. All right, I think that is a wrap on the announcements for today. Does anybody have any immediately pressing questions before I introduce the gentleman that will be running tonight's session? I guess one other question is, many of you have asked about how long the training sessions will last. Approximately 75 minutes, give or take 15 minutes. Is kind of the name of the game here. I've asked all of our coaches and mentors to prepare approximately 60 minutes worth of materials and leave it open for 15-ish minutes for Q&A. However, I know that oftentimes there are lots of questions. I know oftentimes content and presentations run a little bit long. So I recommend carving out somewhere between 60 to 90 minutes for your training sessions. Looks like Jacob is ready to roll through this pretty quickly. Austin, that's a good question. I will work with Pseudo on that. I cannot guarantee that, so thank you for bringing that up. If you all, let me step back. One of the final athlete deliverables, as you all know, is to create 2 challenge walkthroughs. One will be a video-based walkthrough, and one will be a written challenge walkthrough. Those will be submitted via Canvas. You can choose any of the challenges from any of the category weeks or from week 8 to include in those write-ups. Austin's question is, for the challenges, will there be a way to access them after this week for write-ups, even though we can't submit flags after them? I have not come to a conclusion on that with Pseudo, and so I will chat with him, but for the time being, until further notice, go ahead and take screenshots as you're working through them if you think one of these challenges is one that you will want to submit a write-up on. It's likely that we can turn them back on, for example, during week 8 or something along those lines, but I don't want to promise anything. So please do your due diligence and take some screenshots, take some notes, copy and paste, whatever you need to do, so you have whatever you need to submit challenge write-ups on the challenges that are released for this week if they are no longer available. All Yeah, Lily, I think that's the same question, unless I'm misunderstanding. At this point, I cannot promise that, but I will talk to Pseudo and see if maybe we will open them back up during week 8 or something along those lines. But for the time being, it is only intended that the challenges will be available from Tuesday night or Wednesday morning until Sunday. Yeah, certainly no points. Whether or not they'll continue to be available is TBD, and I need to talk to Pseudo a little bit more about that, especially based on the Google Cloud consumption component. But stay tuned for an answer either way there. In the meantime, plan to take screenshots, take notes, copy and paste things, and pull what you need while the challenges are available to you in case you want to submit write-ups on them. Okay, I think I've scrolled. Garv, the survey grades have not been submitted. I was waiting until tonight where I could remind you all about updating your Canvas alias so that I don't have to go back and forth a bunch of times to see who joins the kickoff session. I know some of you have not received grades for the kickoff webinar last week and have not received grade. None of you have received grades for the survey, so those are not in yet. We will be turning on the leaderboards tomorrow. I know you probably see that module in Canvas. However, we have not released the links to the leaderboards yet and made those live to you all. But once we enter attendance from tonight and get caught up on some of the other scoring, we will push those out live tomorrow. Mason, we will talk about getting access to the CTF challenges tonight. Jacob has wiped the CTF environment from the US Cyber Open, created a new registration code, and we will be sharing all that information with you. So stay tuned. Quick scroll, quick scroll, quick scroll. Any questions I'm missing? Okay, I think I got all the questions. In that case, wonderful. I have with me tonight two remarkably brilliant gentlemen, one being a name you are all likely familiar with in Jacob Elliott. He goes by @Pseudo, and another one being Julian Zottel @Saber. These two gentlemen will be running tonight's training session and be sharing with you all the knowledge in their brains about all things web, or at least some of it. George, I see your question. We have discussed this at the beginning of tonight's lecture training session, so catch the recording and stay tuned for updates moving forward. Yes. All right, Jacob, Julian, over to you, gentlemen. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, let's see. I can't see myself on the camera, but it shows my camera is on. So can you actually see me, or am I just a blank right now?
I can't see you.
You're blanking right now.
Yeah.
Try to. That's weird. It was on when I joined.
Yeah, I saw you when you joined.
My camera like has completely disappeared from Google Chrome. So that's strange. One moment. I mean, I guess I'll be fine if you can't see me. It did this the other day. I joined a meeting for work, and it just completely died, and had to like quit out and come back in. But anyway, so I will. Yeah, Julian will join me in solidarity.
Exactly. I'm like, they don't need to stare at my ugly mug.
So yeah, we can kind of introduce ourselves, and a lot of you have talked to me from previous seasons, but I know that there are probably a lot of new people in here. So I'll just give you a quick introduction. I did not prepare any slides or anything because I kind of wanted to just jump right in and go over some of the challenges from the Open and talk about kind of the approach to attacking them, and kind of digging into the mindset of being able to solve some of those challenges. But for people that do not know me, my name is Jacob Elliott, and I have a 5-year-old knocking on my office door right now, if you can hear that. Yeah, honorary cat girl. My name is Jacob Elliott. I am your lead CTF coach, going on, I guess, like a fourth season now with the US Cyber Games program. And Kylie, you had a question, or you just was that a reaction? I'll take it that was meant to be a emote. But yeah, so a little bit about my background. I worked for a number of years at the University of North Georgia as a software developer, before moving into the cyber realm, where I currently work for Dark Wolf Solutions, which is a contractor primarily serving the federal government and U.S. military, as a principal offensive security specialist, which is just a way to say that I'm a pen tester with flair, I guess. So I work over there doing a lot of pen tests, as well as malware analysis, and basically leveraging a lot of the software dev skills and stuff to do a lot of developing our capabilities and things like that. But as I have transitioned into the cyber field, I started getting into doing competitions, and found that CTFs were a great way to be able to, kind of practice and apply a lot of those skills that I was learning, kind of teaching myself as I was making that transition. And and so years later, that has led to winning a lot of notable competitions, like the National Cyber League several times, as well as a lot of other events, smaller CTFs, and playing on teams with a lot of the people from the US Cyber Games program on little side events that we've won, pretty major cash prizes. I have my wife loves it because I have a lot of I have like my drone and AirPods and projectors and all that kind of little gadgets that I win from CTFs. But yeah, by trade, before I moved into cyber, I worked as primarily a web developer. So that is why I have kind of found my niche making a lot of the web challenges for a lot of these capture the flag competitions, and why I kind of end up being the web guy. So enough about me anyway, but I will kick it over to Julian, if he'd like to give a little bit of his background.
Sure. So Julian Zottel, this is my second year, Brad, you'll probably have to correct me, in the US Cyber Games, as a mentor, and I absolutely love it. I'm also heavily involved in another competition, which I probably shouldn't name. That one I've been involved in for a little bit longer. I'm a red teamer at NCCDC, last 7 years actually, so quite a while. My background actually is in reverse engineering. I'm my undergrad master's in electrical engineering. That was like a long time ago, probably before most of you guys were born. And I've always been kind of a hardware hacker and enjoyed things like that. I went to work for Raytheon 19 years ago, actually, and started doing reverse engineering and what I call augmentation of hardware for various intelligence community. And then transitioned into intelligence work and then into defensive cyber work, but always kept a foot over in the offensive side as well. So that's kind of my background. I actually, Raytheon sold off the cyber business last year. It is now a company named Nightwing. I left in October, so I stayed 7 months. During that time, I was the CTO of defensive cyber there. Outside of that, I'm a very active member in the community. Things like I was the lead panelist at Blue Team After Dark at DEF CON a couple of years ago. I was actually trying to think of how many years ago. I think it's actually been 5. And we discussed advanced persistent threat and many other fun topics while drinking whiskey on stage. It was a lot of fun. That's it for me, Jacob.
All right.
Yeah.
Um,
Andre, do you have your hand up, or are you asking a question?
Yeah,
or-
I just want to ask a quick question.
Yeah, please.
Julian, do you have any tips for getting started into hardware CTFs?
Do I have any like insight into getting into them? Start joining them. So I will tell
Maybe
you,
you
like,
need some skills to do them.
yeah, I mean, it helps. I don't know where you are in your hardware journey, so to speak. Having gone through school taught me about 10% of what I really needed to know. I will tell you, as far as hardware hacking goes, a lot of it is, I don't want to say black magic. It is sometimes an art. There is a lot of interesting things with it. Get an oscilloscope, by the way, when I say get an oscilloscope, I don't mean go spend 10 grand on an oscilloscope. What I mean is there are software-defined oscilloscopes that you can literally sit there and probe circuits and figure out, why is this doing this? Why is that doing that? And start going as you go. Build things. I've built tube amplifiers. Actually, one of my tube amplifiers took me about 80 hours. It was a huge project, but it's beautiful. I built, I don't know how many projects. I'm probably well over 100 projects at this point. And so doing that gives you a lot of the knowledge to then go through and start doing hardware CTFs. You'll understand how things communicate. What is this channel doing? What is that channel doing? Why are they sending these bits? Et cetera, et cetera. So, well, I can't say go do this CTF. It's more about getting well-rounded and then just trying your hand at new things.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say from a hardware hacking point of view, the other thing is that then the way that I kind of learned hardware hacking is, go to your local thrift store and go to the shelf where people have dumped a bunch of old consumer electronics and just find I bought like a $5 Linksys router and or like a Netgear router or something like that, and just crack that bad boy open and look for like UART and JTAG and stuff like that. And you can get yourself a bus pirate or some kind of, or you can use your flipper if you have one as an interface to connect to those, and then experiment with connecting and interacting over that bus with like UART or something, or dumping firmware or doing things like that. So there's a lot of like Goodwill and other thrift stores are a really good source for finding just like old stuff that you can mess with, and if you totally brick it, then you might lose like $5 on it. But I've done that exact same thing several times. But Julie and I were just talking about I'm preparing for DEF CON in a couple of weeks, and my focus is going to be the Embedded Systems Village CTF. So I'm prepping my brain for doing a lot of hardware hacking myself.
And by the way, don't be afraid to approach companies. And the way I say that is, a lot of them are going to throw out old hardware, and I'll be honest, most of them don't recycle it like they probably should. So when I worked for Raytheon, it wasn't uncommon. You could go dumpster diving. I would not say break into some place and go dumpster diving. All I'm saying is go in there, politely ask, if you guys are getting rid of equipment, maybe ask for it. I've scored, I think I have like 4 FPGAs because of that.
Yeah, my one of my ways that I got a bunch of equipment in high school is in my younger days, this is like about 22 years ago, I had a teacher in my technology class that was like cleaning out a closet, and he said, hey, take all this stuff out and throw it in the dumpster. And so I took it out and threw it into my backpack instead. Which I do not encourage you to do that sort of illicit thing, but I will say the 16 port router that I saved from that dumpster and plastered with the stickers of various metal bands got us through a lot of Halo LAN parties. Along with the cables that we created, we made a bunch of patch cables for quote practice. For the class as well that we liberated. But yeah, I do not encourage doing that, but yeah, good times. So anyway, without further ado, you know, I am really terrible about actually planning slides and presentations and things for these sorts of talks, but I like to make it kind of interactive and just you know, give you an opportunity to ask a lot of questions, because you know, when we finished the Cyber Open, you know, there is a lot of discussion about you know, the ways to solve different challenges, but I figured we can kind of use this time to discuss some of the challenges from the Open that I had created, some of the web challenges, and then you know, my mindset of doing it, and you know, also some of the inspiration behind it and the techniques that are involved. So I will go ahead and share my screen, and we can hop right into that. So so getting started with this, you know, basically what I was planning on doing was kind of looking at each of these challenges, or if there's something specific that you would like to you know, learn more about, then I can jump to that as well. But you know, basically just starting right off with the first challenge was the LeetCoder challenge. So I think this one, I should have actually looked at the the stats before I cleared out CTFD, but this one actually got I think the most solves, but mostly because I made mistakes when I actually was creating it. But I can actually talk about sort of the intended way that this was meant to be solved, and how I kind of screwed it up, and also kind of the inspiration behind it, because a lot of people, I found out, are very good at PyJails, and better than I expected them to be, and so they found all sorts of interesting, unique ways to be able to break out of this. But a little bit of background of where this actually came from. Let me go ahead and actually spin this up real quick. It's probably going to want to actually build this, but I can leave this running in the background. So
and Jacob, it sounds
yeah.
like you have a couple of questions in chat, and Julian, maybe you can kind of help him with some of these as they come in. But there's a question on what are PyJails?
Yeah, so sorry, I can see the chat, but I just wasn't looking over at it. I have like a 30-something.
Well, no, it's hard to keep up with.
but yeah, so PyJails are basically the concept of it, and a lot of times it's like, it's a category in CTF that can sometimes be very contrived, where it's just sort of like, you know, as people are answering there, it's sometimes it'll be something where they just straight up tell you, like, you know, you have a very restricted Python environment, and you need to break out of it in some way. And so when you see a challenge where you're given the opportunity to execute Python code, but there are some sort of restrictions on it, then that's where people will say, like, okay, it's a standard PyJail challenge. And you know, they can vary in levels of restriction. So this particular challenge, the idea here is that, you know, you are given this LeetCode test, and you need to be able to pull this up real quick. I think I actually had it on a different port. So you're given this LeetCode test, and it basically just gives you a simple interface to be able to put in your sort function, and you know, kind of poking a little fun at jobs that require you to do this kind of stuff. which you can run this just directly returning the number, and you might get lucky and actually get some in the correct order. But the gist of this is that, you know, it's going to take this Python code that you are going to actually submit, and you need to somehow leverage this into being able to you know, get some sort of RCE or be able to read the flag file. And so what's happening under the hood is that it is actually loading this USCG LeetCode validator, which is an actual, if you go to PyPy, it actually is a real library that is now out there in the world. But the source code for that, you know, basically is just that it is going to do a lot of you know, restrictions on what you are allowed to do. Basically giving like a list of quote unquote safe functions that it'll allow you to run. It will only allow you to put one top level function in the function that you create in your code. And it's doing that by using this abstract syntax tree. And so it's actually breaking down at a syntax level the code that you are putting in. And so it's checking each node in that tree to make sure that it is something you should be allowed to do. So I'll say right here that the entire point of this is that you are not supposed to be able to break out of this. But I found that, yeah, as George says, the only way to stop PyJailers is to not do a PyJail. It was the intention of this challenge, and the reason why I made a revenge challenge was that you were not supposed to be able to break out of it easily or at all. And that was to force you to actually do the intended solution. So the you know, it has this validator function that is supposed to actually you know, carry out the validation of your code and see if the sort function is working and all that good stuff. And in the end, what's supposed to happen when you look at the actual the code is that it will run the sub process, but there's also this upgrade function here. And so you know, the background of this is that I was doing an actual real pen test, and a lot of the challenges that I create are inspired by real pen tests that I was doing for actual customers. And so the way that this was supposed to function and the way that it happened in the pen test was that I was looking at a GitLab pipeline that was kicked off by a Jira form, and the idea was that the user could submit a file that would be a URL for a file that was supposed to be very limited with what you could download from, and it would be downloaded into this GitLab pipeline with wget, and then it would run all sorts of virus scans and things, and then it was moving it into an S3 bucket. And this was supposed to be moving it from what they call the low to high side, from like an unclassified to a classified environment. And so as part of this pen test, I look at it and I say, okay, I want to do some sort of command injection. And yes, the PyJail breakout was not supposed to be the intended solution. So in this GitLab pipeline, I found that I could do a command injection, and I could not really fully do command injection, but I could affect the flags that were passed to wget. And using that, I could download arbitrary files, but only from certain domains, with GitHub being one of them. So I was able to host malicious files on my GitHub pages site and then download it into this pipeline. And I discovered that so then I'm thinking, okay, what can I overwrite that will allow me to get RCE on the server? And what I found was there was an environment file that I could overwrite that would actually be carried over into the next stage of the pipeline. And I found that I could overwrite the environment file and put in a pip index URL. And whenever I did that, it would actually change when pip is called. It would actually download from my server instead of from the actual real pip package solution repository. And so the intended solution here, when you look at the actual code, there is a options here that it looks to see if there's a debug flag set. And what you would find is that it actually sets in the environment everything that's in that options dictionary. So what you were intended to do is actually, open up Burp Suite or something and write a pip index URL environment key that would point to your own server. And so I had a simple repo with my own malicious leak code package, and it would whenever you hosted that repo and then put in your malicious pip index URL in the environment, whenever it went to update the package, which is 1.0.8 and it's currently at like 1.0.7, it would attempt to update it, collect that from your own malicious repo, and then trigger that RCE. And so the evil USCG leak code validator basically just had a thing here that would just, I think somewhere here I just stuck in like I stuck in something to like execute. Oh yeah, so I changed the run test cases to just print flag.txt. So yeah, the intended solution was that you would be forced to use that pip index URL and inject your own malicious package. But I did make the fatal flaw of actually underestimating the PyJailers on that. So that was my my mistake, unfortunately. But so I can go and run something like I can use like ngrok or something, and then go in here and just host like a simple Python server like this, and then that port's already used. But I could go in and just put in this URL as the pip index URL, and it would go and find my malicious package and trigger it and give me the flag. So that was the intended solution for that actual challenge. So I as I said, I unfortunately did really underestimate that there were some really tricky and interesting ways that people were able to break out of the PyJail, and were able to just get the flag any other way they wanted, by getting that RCE on the server pretty easily. So I that kind of explains a little bit of the background of that challenge and what was the intended solution for it. If you look at the actual repo for this, I believe I have the solution. I have the README here, kind of explaining everything I had all said there about that. But so anyway, Brad, you got a question?
Yeah, it looks like there are a couple of folks that aren't familiar with ngrok.
Okay.
Just sort of scrolling through and making sure that these questions are being
Yeah, so ngrok is, as you said, it is my preferred way to catch things. People will use a lot of different different burp, I forgot what's like collaborator and all that kind of stuff. So ngrok has a paid version, but you can use the free version. And that is just at like ngrok.com, I believe. But you can sign up here and it allows you to spin up one with the free one, you can spin up one endpoint. And so you can also like webhook.site. The reason why I like to use ngrok is because it does make it very handy for catching a wide variety of things. So for example, when I started this up, I said ngrok HTTP 8000, and that's going to say that when that URL is created, it will give me an HTTPS URL, which I can then, which will then direct to localhost port 8000. So I can put whatever I want on that port, and it could just be something as simple as, listening. Port 800, listening to port 8000, which something else I've got running is already using that, I guess. But that was CTFD I was running locally. So the other thing you can do is, aside from using it for HTTP, you can also use it just for straight like TCP as well. So you can, if you're not dealing with HTTP connections, you can also just get a plain old TCP handler as well. So yeah, super handy, and you don't have to actually pay for anything either. The advantage of the paid plan is that you get the ability to have more tunnels open at once. But yeah, it's just the free version, I think, is a very handy tool to be able to use for CTFs. So that's a good one to learn as part of the web lecture for sure. So yeah, things that, anytime that I am dealing with web challenges, the things that you should definitely have in your toolkit, which I was dumb and did not start this right away, is to fire up Burp Suite and keep that ready for doing a lot of your interaction with these apps. Sometimes I'll look at it just out of the gate. I'll just pull it up in my regular browser, but Burp Suite is very handy specifically for the proxy function. There are a lot of other things, like you can use the intruder for doing things like brute forcing passwords and things, but the only downside is that the free version is artificially limited, and so it will not allow you to actually fire off requests as fast as you could if you would as fast as you could if you would had the paid version, or if you were just using like Python or Hydra or something like that. So the things that I use most often are just using, right out of the box, using the intercept functions on the proxy to be able to go and modify things in transit. Another thing that I find that's really handy for instead of using like DevTools, I find that a lot of browsers do not do super well when it comes to WebSockets. Like you can view messages, but it's not the best for actually going back and forth and being able to type your own messages, or be able to same as the other things, like catch them on the fly and modify them. So Burp is also really good for that. The other thing that I will do sometimes is when I'm looking at the history, if I want to just quickly like make a modification to something, you can right click and say send to repeater, and go and just make a small change to something and just hit send, and that way you can, if you need to look at a request where you already have like all the cookies and things you need set, but you just need to like tweak your payload, you can go in and modify that with the repeater as well. So yeah, Burp Suite, super handy. The other thing, as other people have said, is that a lot of what I like to do when it comes to web CTFs and solving things is having a working knowledge of Python is definitely super handy, because you will or at least some scripting language. I'm not sure if there are a lot of people just like attacking things with like Node.js as much, but yeah, write your exploits in JS. I definitely like to use Python to do a lot of the exploit coding and writing, little one-off scripts to be able to attack things. So the other challenge that I mentioned that had an unintended solution that really hurt my soul was the Begomatic challenge, because it was such a cool exploit, and it just like made me so upset that it ended up being such an easy solution. And so I'll talk a little bit about how this was meant to actually function, and the the intended solution, and also the way that people ended up solving it. So this one actually came from another CTF that I was working on, where I was trying really hard. They gave you a kind of an opportunity where you're thinking that there's going to be a cross-site scripting vulnerability, and I tried everything to leak something to be able to exploit it, and it just did not even it was locked down where I couldn't. The only thing that I could actually leak from it, because it was a Next.js app, was that it was able to leak an action ID, but it was pretty useless because it was the action ID to just log out. But I thought about it, and I was thinking, like, what would happen if you had a Next.js action that the player is unable to, there's no authentication to be able to use that action, but the bot would hit the button, but you couldn't use any sort of a cross-site scripting or anything like that, and be able to actually exploit it some other way. And so in the actual app, there is a very simple approve begging that will approve a submission, and it's using server actions, and so what that means is that on the actual page where it is submitting on the admin page, where it's actually going to be find it here, where it's going to actually approve it, there is actually going to be a button that the admin would actually click to be able to approve it. And so but there is no actual like authentication. There's no like post form, or technically there's an authentication from the bot, but there's not just like a regular old like URL that you could just browse to be able to submit that form. And so a lot of people, because we are doing like dangerously set inner HTML, they the goal is that you as a player are going to look at this and say, okay, this is obviously cross-site scripting. because you need to make it so that when the bot views this page, it will your cross-site scripting will allow it to actually will force it to submit the form to approve your begging and give you the flag. But the only issue with that is that throughout this entire thing, there is a strict CSP that basically says that you cannot do really anything script wise, and so you have to be able to find some other way to influence the bot to be able to submit the form and approve your begging. So again, this is where it kind of stops, because the dumb thing that I did that caused this challenge to be really, really easy was that I actually gave the bot a token, like it was supposed to just be like an API token that it would use, that would actually it would submit on this page to make sure that the bot secret actually matched, and that if it would not, it would say that it was not allowed to be there. So the issue that I ran into is that I did not know that bot authentication would also be sent to basically everywhere else that the bot went. And so some enterprising players discovered that instead of cross-site scripting, if they just put an image tag or a CSS tag in their begging submission, and it went to a server that they controlled, then this bot authentication header would go along with that. It would be appended to that request, and so they would intercept it and then be able to just use that to authenticate and submit their own request. So that was my my dumb moment, adventures in web dev, and so the actual intended solution for this was that because we were really, really limiting the cross-site scripting, the other thing that you can do is using CSS to actually exfiltrate that. And the solution for this was actually to use, you could write it yourself, or you could use a tool like Blind CSS Exfiltration. And this is a pretty interesting tool that you can kind of keep in your back pocket as a fun web tool. And the way that this functions is by using different CSS selectors. So you can write this out yourself, that is, and manually exfiltrate this. Or if you use a tool like this, it will actually dynamically serve up everything. But the idea is that, and you can read this blog post here, the idea behind it is that even if you're not able to actually execute JavaScript, you can use CSS selectors, like an input selecting a certain value, in order to just exfiltrate using like a background image or something like that. And so the idea is that your script will dynamically create hundreds and hundreds of different CSS rules, and basically say, if this input starts with A, then go to this URL /a.jpg or whatever. And so you have your listener that is there basically listening for these rules to be triggered. And once the A's are done, then it can go and continue to append that using different selectors. And so the way that it will work is it uses the import chaining to basically say that once that step is done, it should import the next step, and your script will dynamically build the next part. And so the end result is that you are actually able to exfiltrate the input elements. Only certain elements can be leaked that way, but you're able to leak the value of input elements on the page. And one of those that you're able to get is this action ID. I did make sure that the Docker file actually does do this little tricky thing here to make sure that the ID is actually randomized on every build. So that made it so that you couldn't deterministically just like build it yourself and then take that ID and fire it off at the remote. So I did think about that at least. But the end result is that with that ID and the way that server actions work in Next.js, there is really no like special approve this endpoint or something like that. It basically just says if you have this action ID that you've leaked using that CSS injection, then you can actually just submit something like this with curl, and it will accept it as if you were the bot, even without any sort of authentication token or anything like that, because the action itself on the server side is not protected by any kind of authentication. It's just the front end itself, but it's relying on that security through obscurity to make it to where you would not be able to find this ID on the front end. So yeah, that was the intended solution for that actual challenge. Unfortunately, I did not think that the header issue was going to be a thing, and so people started to solve it very quickly, and I was a little sad. But my solution to actually fix that, and what I should have done from the beginning, was that I actually made it so that the bot actually had a cookie instead, and so it had a cookie that was set on the actual whenever the bot was launched, and it would actually basically have it set so that the cookie would only be passed to this local host, and it meant that if someone did put in any kind of a image tag or CSS or anything like that, it would actually only send that to localhost, and so that would prevent that leakage that happened before. And so I posted that as a revenge challenge, where obviously I did not release the source code because I did not want you to just immediately recognize what was fixed. But I wanted people to realize that their previous solve was not working, and so they needed to find a new creative way to do it. But the CSS injection is a cool way to a cool way to get around some of those CSPs and things. And for people who are unfamiliar with that, the idea of the content security policy, basically saying that you are going to that's in the middleware, I can never find it, basically telling the browser what it is and isn't allowed to do, and so making it so that you can't just send arbitrary scripts and things to the bot, because it will only execute things that are signed with this nonce that is only created on every page load. So these are kind of like realistic web technologies that web developers who are serious about security are going to have a very restrictive CSP that only allows the scripts that they want as part of their application to be executed, and so that means that have this the CSP that prevents things like cross-site scripting. The middleware attack, I know there's a recent CVE that was focused on bypassing middleware to access certain pages. I'm not sure. I believe the version of Next.js I was using had fixed that already. I can't keep up with the actual versions, but I believe that it did actually, the current version did fix that. But because that was one of those things where it was like there was a 0 day, and then they fixed it, and then somebody cracked the fix too, and then everything just continued to pile up. But yeah, so that was the intended solution for that challenge, and unfortunately it did get broken pretty quickly. So so any questions about anything or anything that you because I know I've been like rambling for a while, but anything that in the time remaining that you would like to see, because we have a couple more of these challenges, so I'd love to explain the solutions or give any info about those. So we'll go to Lily.
So my question is technically about one of the forensics challenges you made, so it can wait, and I can message you on Discord later. I'm really curious about the look at this photograph one, because I never did manage to solve it.
So I will say that challenge was just like shamelessly lifted from a real experience that I had in a CTF last year at DEF CON, and it was like a vendor CTF, and it was I was salty about it because I was tied for basically whoever, it was the last unsolved challenge. Me and another guy were tied, and whoever solved it first would win, and the prize was a Flipper Zero. And I sat there trying to solve it with Steg Solve, which was like the older version. And I was like, this is taking way too long. There's no way it's just something in RockU. So I abandoned that. And then it was one of those where I just derped out and forgot that StegSeek was a thing, which goes infinitely faster. And so when I finally realized that, I solved it with StegSeek. I thought that I had locked in first place. I walked over to John Hammond. I told him, hey, that scoreboard's about to refresh and I'm going to be in first place. And then the scoreboard refreshed and I was in second place, and someone else had solved it 14 seconds faster than me. And so the other guy won the Flipper Zero. No, John wasn't even playing. He was just there, kind of like helping run it. But the other guy solved it 14 seconds faster than me. And my consolation prize was he got a flipper and a bottle of scotch, and I just got a bottle of scotch. So it was not a total loss at all. But yeah, I made that challenge as a homage to that specific thing. But so I will yeah, that's the background of that. But I believe George was next with the questions.
Yeah. So I got lost in the sauce a little bit when you were going over the blind CSS exfiltration. Could you go over that again, please?
Sure. So like I said, I didn't demo it because I think I screwed this up somewhere where I messed up my build process somewhere here, so this is not building. But the and I saw there was a request to go over repository too, so you can look at that in just a second. But so basically the gist of it that I talked about was in the middleware here. There's a restrictive CSP that prevents actual cross-site scripting from being executed, but you can use blind CSS exfiltration, which I can post in the chat here. And the gist of that is that you can actually, instead of just using cross-site scripting, you can take advantage of the fact that you can include style sheets instead, and use different CSS selectors, specifically ones that allow you to do select elements using the value of an input to load things. So in this case, it's going to say if an input has a value of 1337, then it should set the background to a certain URL. And so in this case, you would have this URL be a server that you control. And so by doing that, when your script that's listening sees this URL be pulled, like with value equals 1337, then it will, you're exfiltrating that value. So by chaining together a bunch of different rules and abusing a bunch of different things, you can use this other tool that I had mentioned in the README, which I will also put in chat. It will, you can use this script basically just right out of the box, and point it at that challenge, and it will actually exfiltrate so you would include this pointing to your actual local server. It would actually basically exfiltrate the value of any input elements on the page, including that action ID, which then you can just submit using curl and a little bit of knowledge about the way that Next.js works to manually approve your own submission. So that was the 90-mile-an-hour explanation of that. So yeah, in the time we have left, I will talk about the repo challenge some, and my goal.
Lewis has his hand up too.
What's that?
Lewis has his hand up too.
Okay, sorry, it was behind my other window. So Lewis, another question, real quick.
Hey, yeah, Jake, appreciate that. Big fan of your work. I find that a lot of folks, whenever they look at web challenges, they just get overwhelmed straight out of the gate. In terms of just like a couple of step ones, I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat kind of hint at this. Like, where do folks begin when they want to get better at web? Like, what's a step one?
Yeah, so basically web is definitely, and one of the things that I've told people that I really consider to be like a big strength that I have when it comes to doing web challenges is if you have experience building websites, because you really, in order to be able to tackle a web challenge, it definitely helps to have some understanding of the underlying technologies and being able to know kind of like what are the dangerous functions and features of this technology or this thing that you're using, and also being able to pinpoint kind of like where you need to focus. And one of my big rules, and to Andre's question, I'd say different tech stacks for sure. It's one of these things where, as with any CTF, challenge or family of challenges, is that you need to look at it, and the way Mason said it, you need to identify what tech stack it is, and also where the flag is. So generally that can be done by looking at something like the Docker file. You're going to see it say explicitly it's copying the flag somewhere, or if you're saying that it's submitting the flag, if it's putting the flag in like a SQL database, like you see some rows being made in a CT or in a SQL database, then that tells you that you're going to need to access it using some sort of SQL injection or some sort of other exploit that's going to get that to you. And then the other thing that's very general when it comes to looking at web challenges, and my rule of thumb that I always tell people is that challenge developers are going to be lazy. Like, I'm not going to build a entire, huge website that's like, multiple features and different things. A challenge developer is going to build the components of the web page that are needed to solve the challenge. Unless just really want to throw people off. But when there are exceptions to that. Like, you're gonna see web challenges that have a lot of fluff, but my rule of thumb when I'm looking at a web challenge is, what functionality does this have, and does that point me towards the actual path to solving it? So if you see that you're able to upload files, very few times are you going to need to upload files as part of a web challenge, unless uploading files is part of the intended solution. As Cameron said, if you see that there is a bot that is executing, if you see, like in a Docker file, it's putting in Selenium, Puppeteer, any of these things, then it's almost always going to be some kind of cross-site scripting, because that's telling you that they want to simulate a real user browsing to something, and then that browser working in a realistic way. So when you're using Puppeteer, then that's going to tell you, okay, like somewhere along the way, it's going to view something that I control, and so that's going to tell you that it's going to be cross-site scripting or some kind of injection vulnerability. So yeah, that, those are some of my ways that I look at it to start with. And as other people have said in the chat, I am a big fan of using ChatGPT a lot. I'm not sure if I'm like logged in here, but yeah. So if I go, and you can see my wife shares my account, so she's gonna like look at how home improvement and stuff like that. Watercolor dog request. But yeah, so the cool thing about ChatGPT is that you can upload, and I have just like the very basic I have the very basic account that I forget what I pay, like $5.99 a month or something. And and so what I will start doing is I will literally go, and this is a larger application, but you can actually also upload zip files as well. So if I were to go and upload this, I can go to one of these challenges, and I'll say like this Begomatic challenge. And sometimes I'll just go straight with the actual zip file itself and just say, GPT-4o, which I'm using, will extract this and will analyze it. And so this will give a lot of insight into it. So we can see, as it recognized immediately, the way that I talked about how there's a bot.js, it thinks about it the same way that bot.js simulates an admin viewing request, indicating that this is possibly an XSS target. So it says it suggests that it's client-side XSS or HTML injection. And then also the fact that it does dangerously set inner HTML. So, it will give me some information about this. So the the other thing that it notices here, it does say use blind exfiltration via, and it talked about using document.cookies or leaking it with CSS. So I could probably just walk along with it here and realize I could say, like, I notice there is a restrictive CSP. Is there a way around that? And so it's probably going to look at that file and see that in the middleware JS, it notices that there is a CSP. So it's going to realize. So this is where it points out that you could potentially use CSS exfiltration. So, you know, and it even talks about that blind CSS exfiltration. So, you know, when I am working on CTF challenges, I will constantly have, and I won't scroll through this too much, but in case I leak any of my other challenge ideas. But the you know, when I'm working on a real CTF, I will have like a constant back and forth with a AI. Yes, there is a ladder CTF, because I do have conversations with ChatGPT as I am creating things as well. But yeah, so using AI is definitely, I don't think, like a bad word at all, unless it's just like explicitly restricted in your in the CTF environment that you're in. And so the elite challenge I did not make with Cursor. I did actually, you know, again, I came up with the idea myself, but I did actually do some vibe coding directly with GPT-4o when it came to creating the AST traversal and all that good stuff. Which, you know, again, that's one of those things where it greatly speeds up your ability to create things, but it does introduce those issues where you know, you get totally beaten by the pie jailers. So yeah, as Luke said, it's super handy just for developing APIs and things like that, and being able to very quickly put together like a skeleton for something, and then be able to you know, as a challenge developer, then focus on refining that idea and being able to get it the way you want it. Because ChatGPT will often you know, not get things the way that you want, and requires a little bit of hand holding. But I definitely like to use it some. So I know we're getting down to the last little bit, so I will run through talking about the repository challenge, because there was a you know, a lot of people really struggle with this, and I will say that this was like a revenge challenge on its own, just because I can't remember who it was. One of the current season team members, I can't remember if it was Samwise or somebody, said that I did all my web challenges in either Flask or Golang. So I took that. I took offense to that, and I said, I'm going to make a Java challenge. So this particular challenge is a Spring JS challenge, and so this was an interesting. Yeah, Lily, your wishes might come true soon. I'll see what I can do, but so you know, Java is interesting because it is a you know, in terms of CTFs, it's pretty rare to actually see a Java challenge. it's used a lot. I come across a lot of it in actual pen test, but it's pretty rare to encounter this in an actual CTF. So the idea behind this challenge was that Java has the ability to load packages or load classes dynamically, and the idea behind it was that we have just this simple file repository app, and it's kind of built out with just like a basic skeleton to where really it just starts with like a local storage is really the only one that's built out. But we are given the concept of these different plugins, and so we have like a local storage plugin, and it allows you to each of these plugins allows you to create a repository of that type, and that will allow you to upload files in that repository. And so the Spring front end allows the user to create repositories, to view files in those repositories and stuff like that. And so the idea behind this is that we are loading as part of this utility class here. There is a load plugin function, and it will actually look for the jar file for a plugin, and it will attempt to load it using this class loader here, and then we'll return that class for that plugin. And so the idea is that I want the player, and kind of the original concept of the whole thing is that I want the player to find a way. They need to recognize that this class loading is happening. Then if you're doing like a real Java pen test, then these are the types of things that you're going to be like, grepping for. Like if you're looking for vulnerable things, you're looking for instances where files are being loaded, but especially where if you're looking for things where classes are being loaded, especially if it's something that you can control in your input. So the idea of this, obviously, like I said, is that we want to be able to load a malicious jar file. And this is where I screwed up on this good old double equal instead of using the dot equals function, due to some wonderful Java memory complexities. But the idea is that when you attempt to upload a file, it will put it into that repository. But there is some stuff to make sure that you are not able to actually upload disallowed file type. So we have this util function that says like is allowed file type, and it will basically check that, say that it's these nice safe file types, but it will not allow you to upload a like a jar file or something like that. And so the idea was that you would attempt to upload a jar file and fail because it would not be allowed file type, and so you would have to find another creative way to do this. And the way that you were actually intended to do it is that there's this copy function that allows you to copy a file from another repo, and so the idea is that you would go and create a HTTP repo that was a URL that you controlled, and you would actually basically download a jar file from that. Now, this still has the same issue with the allowed MIME type. Like, it's going to check if it's an allowed MIME type. So you can't just copy the jar file using that, because when it detects that it's this disallowed MIME type, it's going to delete that file. So the actual intended way to do this is that there's an important distinction where you might notice that even though it was only putting in one file name that it was going to copy, it actually accepts it as a list of files. And it'll say for file and files, it will attempt to download each of these files. So that's the first thing. You can do multiple files. The other thing that you could notice is that it runs through all the files and downloads them and adds them to the staged files list. And then it validates them. So this is what they would call a time of check, time of use race condition, meaning that by manipulating the speed at which these downloads happen, there's an opportunity to interact with that jar file before it's deleted. Yeah, they'll go talk to and so what I mean is that if I say, okay, I'm going to tell this to download 2 files, one of them is going to be my malicious jar file, and then the other one is going to be a really big file or something that I'm going to actually intentionally delay downloading by 5 seconds. Then what that means is during that 5-second period, my malicious jar file exists on the server. And so because it exists on the server and hasn't been checked if it's malicious or not, during that 5-second window, I can now access that file. And so the other thing in the load function is that there is actually a plugin in this plugin class here. There is actually going to be a path injection that you can take advantage of. So the end result is basically in the solution that you could create an evil storage class, which in this case, I created one that just reads flag.txt. And then I set up a server that allows me to get that jar file that's a malicious file, and then a delay me route that just says to sleep for 10 seconds. So my solution basically is that it will create an HTTP storage repo with a random name, and then it will go ahead and I could actually add my malicious storage name ahead of time. Then it will attempt to copy 2 files from my HTTP storage. One of them using the path traversal vulnerability, downloading my evil storage, and then downloading the delay. And so when it downloads that evil storage, it then uses that 5-second delay to spam creating a new repo with that evil storage jar, and then requesting the flag from that. So during that 5-second window, while it's delayed and the evil jar is not deleted as a disallowed file type, it would allow you to win the race and get the flag. So I say all that because this one actually, although it had less solves, this one also did have another unfortunate unintended solution. And the unintended solution came in the plugin loader that basically said that if it was a local storage, it should ignore the path configuration, and it should just generate a random path in order to put like a folder to point that plugin at. The path traversal vulnerability is here in this plugin class .jar file. Basically, it whenever it goes and puts in this, whenever it goes to load the jar file, it will actually traverse out of that and or sorry, it wasn't right here. It was in the copy function. It will copy it into the plugins folder instead of where it was supposed to be. So when it goes to do this this save file, it will actually allow it to copy it to somewhere else. So when it goes to put in this, if I can find it in the code, when it goes to download the file into a temp folder, it will it has a path traversal vulnerability using that file name that will allow it to put it somewhere else instead. So you inject that malicious jar into the plugin folder, and then win the race and win the flag. But the problem that I made was, instead of using this double equal here, you're supposed to, in Java, you're supposed to actually do this and say dot equals. And it's an important distinction because the double equal is pointing to a specific instance in memory, whereas the dot equals is checking by value. And so because I made this boo-boo here, people were able to actually bypass this and just inject a path into the local storage. They could initialize a new local storage repository and just set the path that it would store it to just /flat or just a / and then just request flag.txt that way. So that was another unintended solution that broke the much more elegant intended solution. But it's one of these things we just learn every year how to create better CTF challenges. So I know we're kind of over by a couple minutes here, but I'll hang out if y'all have any more questions. I go ahead and go to George.
Yeah, in 1 sec, I'm going to interrupt before we go to George. Hey, George, sorry, 1 sec. I'm just going to share some notes for folks. I know it's late for many of you on the East Coast, and some of you have things to get off to. So if you are ready to head out for this evening, you are more than welcome to, so long as you've attended this far and responded to the poll, you are good to go. If you want to stick around and hear the questions and answers, you are more than welcome to. I will drop a note into Discord in terms of how to join the CTF environment. Please follow the instructions on joining CTFD in terms of your username and take note of the registration code, etc. But before I leave you, let's all give Jacob a massive round of applause. Thank you so much, Jacob. You are truly a legend, as was commented many times. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out via Discord. I'm going to be stepping away from my computer for about a half an hour, but I will be back and responding to you tonight if you have questions. And we will be updating everything in Canvas tomorrow to include attendance points as well as the recording from tonight's session. So I will leave the recording going until Jacob leaves tonight's training session. Otherwise, folks, thanks for being here tonight. Wonderful first session. I can't wait for future sessions. There's going to be a lot of wonderful collaborations, a lot of knowledge shared. So please, if you haven't already, bookmark Tuesdays. All of the Google Meet join links are uploaded to Canvas for you to take note of those. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your evening and check Discord for the information on joining CTFD. Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks, Jacob.
Yep. Thank you, Brad. So thank you all for listening. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants on these, where I'm not someone who does a bunch of slides and reads off of them, but I try to keep it somewhat interesting for you all. And I know that looking at some of these challenges, especially people who did not solve them during the open and might want to learn more about it, and also kind of see what the approach is to actually building and also like examining these as a player. But yeah, I'll hang out for a few more seconds. So George, what was your question?
I just wanted to look at the HTTP server code again.
Okay.
Because I remember you doing the what's it called, the LFI, but I just wanted to look how it would look on the server side.
Yeah. So the
for install, how'd you set it up?
so the actual sorry, do you mind muting yourself? Just, so the actual vulnerability happened in the, I believe it's in the repo controller here. So when it does the copy function here, it creates this temp directory, or it's just this repo copy directory. And so then for each of these files, it will actually download, it'll actually look at this file here. So this is the temp file. So it has the temp dir that it created, but then it says resolve file.to file. And that's an important distinction, because what it's doing is it's actually resolving the canonical path for that file. So if the temp directory is, and this is a random name directory, so it would be, /temp/ repo copy _ a bunch of numbers and stuff. So what happens is, because in my solution code, when I looked at my, I can find my solve. If I put in this path where I'm doing this path traversal, what happens is that it will actually append that onto that temp folder, and then when it calls resolve, it will actually resolve those dot dashes, and the end result is that when it resolves that, it will resolve to basically what I gave it, which is it'll resolve to just app plugin storage evil storage.jar. And so it's kind of a subtle vulnerability if you're not familiar with the way that Java works, but this is where the actual path traversal happens. And so then it just writes the content where it's meaning to write it to that temp file. It's writing it into the actual it's writing it into that plugin folder. And so that's what allows you to inject that malicious jar file into that plugin path, which then in my solve script, where then I start spamming, trying to I've created my evil storage repo. It loads evil storage.jar during that 5 seconds while the file is existing before it's deleted. So yeah, the other way that some people did it, the people who did solve it the intended way, they actually just sent the same file twice, and because there was a large file coming after it, it naturally delayed it by a couple seconds anyway. So you didn't even have to artificially delay it. You could actually just tell it to download the same file twice, and if it was a large jar file, it would automatically do that on its own. But yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. That makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll get one more question from Seth before we call it a night.
Yeah, okay. I got the server to restart running locally on Docker, but all right, let me turn off this fan. And that caused me to be able to set the path as / and see the flag locally on local storage, but I could not figure out how to get that to work on remote. So, what was the difference there? And how do you get that to work on remote?
They're really so the reason why, and the only reason why I could imagine that it would not work on remote is because what I was talking about with the way that the actual this equals versus dot equals is that it's checking if r.type equals local storage. And so it's comparing it to this specific instance of this string at a specific address in memory rather than doing it by value. And so I may be totally off with this, but the way that I understand the internals of Java is that sometimes this will actually validate as being correct. Sometimes it will say that this is correct, and sometimes it won't. It can be hit or miss. So if you were able to get this to work locally but not on the remote, then it could have just been that you were just getting unlucky in terms of like if the memory was positioned just right where it was hitting that that correct address and it hadn't like gotten moved around at all. But yeah, that's the only thing that I could really think of, because I think you weren't the only person who said that. But I believe the first solve, Sala got, who goes by Outrest, got the first solution, and his solution was just this like brutal spamming of trying to create local storage. And he basically just tried to create a bunch of local storage repos, and eventually it just gave up and gave it to him. So it seemed like on the remote you could take advantage of that, but it may not always get it. And so he was able to just spam it with like this multi-threaded repo creation script, and it just somehow got it one time and spat out the flag.
Huh.
So he kind of did it in an unintended way that made me scratch my head, but I give him kudos anyway. So I feel like anytime people do solve things unintended ways, like even on like LeetCoder or any of that, I always enjoy seeing it, because it just means that you're out there thinking of things that I didn't think of. So I still give kudos to those people.
Thanks.
Cool. Well, thank you all again for hanging out. The 18 of you who stayed in here. Again, I look forward to this season, and I look forward to seeing you all tackle the couple of challenges that I put up for this week for the web ladder challenges. I created all 3 of them, and just to have a little fun to play with. I can't really say if it's at the level of the open challenges, but it's just a couple of things to give you some stuff to cut your teeth on. And see, start off easier, and I think kind of progress a little bit more difficult. And we'll see how long they last. They may all get solved tonight really quickly. They may not, but we'll see. So I'll look forward to watching the action. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and